Computer's off.
Just.
The computers are off. What time is on your computer? Mine says 5:36. Okay, ready? I'm going to call to order the February 18th City Council meeting. Please rise for the pledge. Okay. 1.1, public comments and announcements. At this time, we'd like to listen to any member of the audience on any subject matter, whether or not that item is on the agenda. All comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for each speaker, shall be limited to city business or city-related business or matters of general public interest, and shall not include any personal attacks. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda. When your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name and address clearly into the microphone before making your comments. Thank you. J.P. Byers.
J.P. Byers, I live in Seabrook, running for council position number 2. Before I go forward, if it's possible, I want to make sure that what I'm about to say is actually okay. I don't want to waste my breath or time. I do have a specific council member that I would like to address directly. Is that all right or no?
Well, that's fine. Just don't disparage or call name.
No disparagement. It's just a statement of facts.
Yeah, I would keep it above board. The mayor can interject at some point if it gets out of.
And if that's the case, that's the case, and I can be quiet and wait. So I think I've made it pretty well known since I've been coming to the council meetings that I am not exactly one of the people that is a keyboard warrior. I think you'll find me on Facebook very rare, but last council meeting kind of broke my heart. Buddy, during the discussion of whether or not we were or were not allowed to do things differently when it came to the recall, 2 things you said really, really hit me hard. The 2 things that you said were, number 1, that you had found people on the recall that you personally called upon. Here's the thing. I understand that you did not necessarily have to antagonize, harass them directly, but even the phone call on its own, there's a reason why every single person here gets to vote in secret. And while yes, that actual form becomes public knowledge so that you guys can validate it, it's not meant for you to be able to call somebody. And the reason for that is because it is specifically because everything was explained. It was above board. You've seen copies of the exact reasons why every single member that was recalled was recalled. It was stated very clearly. And while I was not a part of the group of people that did, I literally was told as I was signing each page, why I was signing each page, and exactly the reason for signing each page. So the people that you've called and talked to, I promise you, got the exact same thing. And I guarantee you, if you start talking to anybody else, you'll find they all were told the exact specific reason why. Man, I understand that it's treading lightly, trying to maintain the harassment thing, but just your position alone, your position as counsel alone is enough to intimidate somebody. It's just like anybody else in power. It's one of the things that our officers have to really work out and tread lightly, because it's something that when they have to pull somebody over already, they are in a position of power. You sitting there as Mayor Pro Tem are in a position of power. And people can feel oppressed just by the fact that you called specifically about that one thing. I'm going to leave that alone. The next thing is there's somebody brought up something about the rocks that the kids have been painting and putting out. And I guess apparently some kids painted some vote for Jackie Rasco and a couple other people, and they've put them out on public trails. Now, Dave, I know that you specifically went through and said, hey, these things could potentially lead to legal matters. I went and looked it up. There is no case whatsoever from SCOTUS that says it. And our definition of signs here in this city are so broad, it's the only way it could be construed as a sign is because there is such a broad definition on what a sign is in our city. However, the state of Texas and federal law would state that any rock painted by somebody, as long as it wasn't commissioned by the actual person who it was being voted upon, if it was not endorsed by that person or any of the such, that it is considered freedom of speech. And I think that if we were to try to ticket anybody who wanted to paint a stupid rock that is an expression of art, if we really have people here making an average of $200,000 a year, we'll have no problems taking us to court and taking it all the way to SCOTUS and costing us even more money. These are rocks. They're not signs. I can't believe we would even impede on anybody's freedom of speech.
Appreciate it. Laura Davis.
Mayor, Council, my name's Laura Davis. I live at 2516 Wild Oak Forest Lane here in Seabrook. I'm here in support tonight of Agenda Item 4.1, the Public Safety Task Force recommendations for capital expenditures. I am actually a citizen member of that task force appointed by Gail and have been for many years. When I was on council, public safety was my passion, and it continues to be even now. And I would like y'all all to take a really good look at some of the items, or all the items that our first responders are requesting. That special fund was created specifically as a capital purchase mechanism. It is donated generously by our citizens, and I believe that our first responders have looked very hard at how to best use the funds that have been allocated this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Jack Butler.
Good evening, folks. I'm Jack Butler. I live at 538 Surf Oaks Drive. It's not my subject tonight, but I got to say offhand, I was a little disappointed not to see on the agenda an item I was expecting on financial, financial transparency. You go to the website, there's a link by that name. You click on it, and it pulls up a series of spreadsheets, about 230 pages long, each of them full of little numbers that you can barely read, right? And it's certainly not transparent. So hopefully that issue will come back up a little bit later in the year. I hope it does, because I'd like to see more visibility. Coincidentally, financial transparency is the topic of my discussion tonight. It's just in a little different context. If you'll recall, at your last meeting, you were given packets in support of a proposed bond amendment. And at the bottom of page 4, it says, very prominently, the city has a total principal amount of existing bonds equal to $42 million as of September the 30th. That's not true. There's also another $17 million worth of, what do they call them, certificates of obligation bonds in the enterprise fund. The enterprise fund being your water and sewer bill. So think about that. I'm going to resist the temptation to characterize why it was presented the way it was. But the $42 million that's referenced here is the amount of the general obligation bonds in the general fund. It makes no mention of the other bonds in the enterprise fund. But you know what they have in common? Two things. They're all backed by the voters. They have to be approved by the voters. And number two, they're backed by property taxes. And there's some other things in the enterprise fund. There's revenue bonds, and there's the balance on a state infrastructure bank loan that we have. The point is, our total indebtedness, and I think that's the picture was trying to be created, is over $60 million, not $42 million. And so my point is, I don't want to get wonky. My point is this. whether it comes out of your left pocket or your right pocket, it's still your pocket. And your pocket is your pocket. It's also my pocket. So now you're going to come to me and ask me to approve another $20 million in bonds. I want you to be more forthcoming. You can't be financially transparent if you're not also forthcoming with your information. I deserve to know all of that information in order to make a decision. Be transparent with me. Be transparent with everybody. With that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share my sentiments, and I yield back the rest of my time. Good night.
Thank you, Jack. Veronica Hall?
Veronica Hall, 2609 Latesh Lane, Seabrook. I live in Lake Cove. On behalf of BayCert, our Bay Area Community Emergency Response Team, we want to thank Seabrook City Council for all your support for the last 19 years. Okay. This last weekend, Saturday, we attended the CERT Rodeo, which is a statewide competition of CERT teams where we practice our skills and compete in 10 different areas of emergency response. And you're graded with points, and our team earned 996 points, which was the highest. So once again, BayCert won the CERT Rodeo, and we're quite proud of that. And one reason we do so well is because of the support from Seabrook Council with our facility, our supplies, our equipment, the support that we get anytime we need anything, and when we can return back to council anything that we can. But we're very proud of our team, and a lot of the credit goes to our council. So thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Congratulations. Item 1.1, Mayor, City Council, and members of city staff may make announcements about city community events.
Well, good evening. This coming Wednesday, February 19th, which also happens to be tomorrow, the EDC is hosting an anniversary celebration for Alspa's Boutique by Kelly Annette. It is Nassau Parkway, Suite 201, just right down the road. If you have a chance, go by there and check that place out. It's really a neat little store. They have stuff that you would never expect to find in a boutique. Just stop by and say hello. That goes from 2 to 2:15 tomorrow. If you could be there, please do so. Coffee with a Cop is coming up again on February 28th. That's a Friday from 9:30 to 11 a.m. That'll be at Damn Fine Coffee and Fried Pies. The last day to apply for a place on the special election ballot is Monday, March 3rd, City Hall. That is only for position 1. Seabrook Lucky Trails is coming up in March. That's March 14 to 16 at Mater Park. SeabrookLuckyTrails.com. That's a great event. Lasts a week or more. Good times. And Trash Bash is right behind that. That is Saturday, March 29th. Trash Bash. You can park and get registered at James Bay Elementary from 8:30 to 9 a.m. Cleanup goes from 9 to 11. Is there anything I've missed?
Anybody else? Thanks, Rob. 2.0 presentations, 2.1. I need to make a proclamation declaring February 21st, 2025 as Government Communications Day. Okay. Whereas the role of government communication professionals is to inform, educate, and engage the residents, businesses, and visitors of their communities. And whereas clear and timely communication fosters trust and inspires Seabrook residents to participate actively in civic matters and community initiatives. Whereas government communications help build awareness and understanding by telling Seabrook's story, encouraging civic engagement, and promoting involvement in critical city decisions using a variety of communication channels. Whereas effective communication is vital to ensuring that all residents of Seabrook have the opportunity to make their voices heard, which strengthens the democratic process. And whereas the city of Seabrook acknowledges and deeply appreciates the professionalism, dedication, and hard work and commitment of the Department of Public Affairs staff, who tirelessly serve to keep the community informed and engaged. Now therefore, I, Tom Kolevsky, Mayor of Seabrook, do hereby proclaim February 21st, 2025 as Government Communications Day in the city of Seabrook. Thank you very much. Congratulations. I don't think anybody could mess up your hair. It felt like concrete. Felt like concrete. Okay. Oh, that doesn't work. 3.0, the consent agenda. Approve the minutes of the February 4th, 2025 Seabrook City Council meeting.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor? Thank you. 4.0, new business. 4.1, consider and take all appropriate action on an amendment to Public Safety Fund 2025 budget to approve the request for $125,648.03, which includes items to be purchased for the public safety agencies. Kevin?
Mayor, Council, as you know, the Public Safety Fund budget is presented to council each year to approve the expenditures for the year. The amount received from last year was $123,470.78, giving the Public Safety Fund balance of $221,445.26. Public Safety Task Force is requesting $125,648.03, which includes items to be purchased for the public safety agencies. As you know, these include the Police Department, Fire Department, EMS, Emergency Management, which under Emergency Management includes Base Cert, Public Works, and did I mention? I think that's all. Public Safety Fund Committee identified all requests as appropriate and justified, and this approval will leave a healthy reserve balance of $108,144.30. I'll entertain any questions y'all may have.
Kevin, approximately how much do we, is that fund replenished every year? Do we know?
So it's
On an average?
like we got 123,000 last year and some change. Mike's not here. It's roughly about that.
Okay, okay, just curious if it's kind of an average throughout the last 10 years.
I believe so. I can get you that information.
No problem, there he is.
Hello, Finance. Mayor was asking what we historically normally get in revenue for the public safety.
Just the ballpark?
Around 110,000.
Okay, all right. So it's healthy.
It's healthy.
Yeah, thank you. Joe?
Is there any way we could raise it from 125,648.03 to 125,648.05? Just round it
I
up.
could find someone.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
sir.
I move to approve 4.1.
All in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Mayor, Council, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. 4.2, consider and take all appropriate action regarding the recommendations of the Open Space and Trails Committee for the fencing located at the Carruthers Coastal Garden property.
Mayor and Council, this item's being brought for, excuse me, from the Open Space and Trails Committee. They voted on a recommendation for moving the fence and have proceeded to bring this forward to council for consideration.
Move to approve 4.2.
Second.
Second.
I don't disagree with moving the fence. I just want to know where the money to do so is coming from.
So I think on your attachment at the very end, the open space and trails is pleading to council to not take this out of the Carruthers Fund, but to find other funding. So that would be the other request that I would look for from council. If this is a reserve expenditure, we'd like to know that where you would like to take that from.
Do we know how much it's going to cost?
We have one quote in right now. It's approximately $8,000. We're still hoping to get a couple other quotes.
Okay, if we would take it out of the insurance now and then at a later date, do a budget adjustment, would that be the easiest part? What would be the easiest way?
We can come back and do a budget adjustment if you're wanting to take it out of reserves. It'd be easy just to do a budget adjustment. We'll come back, you'll approve that, pull it out of reserves for that expenditure.
Okay, do you need a formal motion on where the money should come from?
If you would, and then we'll formalize that with the budget adjustment later.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the funding come from our reserve.
Okay.
That's an amendment to the, that's an amendment.
Excuse me, I meant to say, I mean to amend my original motion that the funding would come out of our reserves.
Do I hear a motion, or do I have a,
Second.
on the first or second motion?
Okay,
Second one, the first one's been made.
so have we talked to the company that did it? Because the way I was understanding, all the chain link, the black chain link is reusable, and the top rail is 100% reusable. And then the only thing that would have to be done would remove the post and then reset the post, and then they can put up all that existing chain link and the top rail. So that should save a lot of money.
If we're going to do this, and I believe we should, it needs to be placed in along a surveyed line. No wiggling around trees or anything like that. I understand OS&T's perspective of protecting all the trees and everything like that, and absolutely support the idea of them having a representative on site. But at the end of the day, if we're going to spend the city's money to move a fence, it needs to go to the right place one time and not have to address it again. So that surveyed location may involve moving some trees or anything like that. The quote seems kind of low considering that. So I would be hesitant to vote for it. Don't misunderstand. I absolutely think it should happen. I want to know how much it costs and where it's coming from.
So so the quote we got is for removing the existing fence and re-putting it back up. They're actually going to get us another bid for the removal of all the vegetation. So that $8,300 is just to remove the existing fabric, the top rail. They're going to cut the existing posts because they can't reuse them because they're embedded in concrete, and then move it to the property line. And there's still going to be another proposal for all the vegetation removal. So that it'll be a little bit, so far, it's going to be more than $8,300. That's just the fence only.
So we haven't gotten a bid for the vegetation removal?
Not yet, no.
Are the members of OS&T in agreement with the removal of vegetation? Have we, and the reason I bring this up, because when we went down this road, at the very beginning, on the initial thing with the fence, vegetation line was a very big thing. And there were the members of the OS&T that didn't want a fence, they just wanted vegetation. And we followed the vegetation line with the fence the first time. So if we're going to do it, I'd like to get everybody on the same page so we don't go through another, let's do it again.
I'm just going to refer back to their letter. Whatever their letter states is what they're wanting.
Yeah, that means they said they understand that, like the oleanders and things like that will have to be cut down to put it there. Shouldn't affect any other trees. So I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Do we know for a fact it won't affect any of the trees?
There will be some trees that have to come out. If it goes exactly on the property line. If we weave it, we can move around some trees.
It says 1 or 2 trees right here, so, I mean, if those 1 or 2 trees are the ones that they're trying to preserve.
I think there's maybe one or two good trees. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some Chinese tallows out there. You definitely don't want those. And then there's another type of trash tree that, there's a high tension line there, and the birds sit on that, and when they go to the bathroom, that's where trees spring up. But anyway, the rest is just trash stuff, so it can actually all go. But the main thing is, if you get the fence on the property line, it also gives you access to the electrical, which they need to finish the Carruthers out there. So that's the other big part of it.
We went down and council was deciding what vegetation to keep or not keep and all that, and that didn't do it. I would like to get OS&T to really formalize or walk the line and say, here's our survey line, and have them sign off on it so we don't, again, go through this thing and have the expense come back up again. Because the big yell was, we didn't follow the property line and we have all this space that we've lost.
Okay, we have a motion in a second, in an amended motion in a second. So,
Favor going forward, I'm just saying this is, for the implementation of it, for the benefit of Public Works and engineering, is my recommendation of going forward.
Like maybe have a member of open space kind of work with the city staff to actually lay out the fence line? Is that what we're?
I mean, ultimately, it's their decision. That's what we're doing this for. So if they want to weave the fence around again, that's up to them. They were the ones that complained the first time. Okay, so we have a motion, an amended motion in a second. All in favor?
That's on the amendment?
Yeah, on the amendment.
Was that the amendment?
We don't need a vote on the original.
And then we go back to the original.
Okay, so can I get a vote on the original motion to approve?
Are you all in favor of the original
Yeah,
motion?
it's good.
What was the amendment?
The amendment was,
Yeah, there's 2 votes.
yeah, the first amendment was to do it. The second amendment was to take it out of general fund.
First was to do it.
Correct. Okay, the first one was to just do it. Yes.
Did they vote on
All in favor of the First Amendment, or the first motion, first
The
motion?
motion moved forward with the fence.
it? I just needed the vote.
Okay, we're good. Stop amending those.
By the way, the property line is surveyed and staked, so just letting you know.
5.0 discussion, 5.1. Discussion regarding the use of the online portal for the Seabrook Buildings Department.
Okay, I didn't realize how we are still scheduling permits and getting inspections by a phone call. It's not, or an email. We have no online portal. And when I asked about this, I was told that you guys have been looking at it for about a year. And I just wanted to know, what I had suggested was the MGO Connect because it was designed for government entities and a lot of people use it. But what's the big holdup? Is it money?
So there's a number of issues, but we have a variety of ways to be able to schedule. We do have some functionality through the portal where residents and contractors can pay fees, and people who are signed up to use that can schedule inspections that way also. But we have been historically with Tyler Technology. About 3 years ago when we implemented the online pay feature, we did implement some other softwares that were supposed to help us with some of this, but in that time, they haven't really met our expectations, and we continue to have issues. We have looked at, in the last 9 months or so, we have been looking at some possible replacements for our software that would provide an entirely inclusive portal to citizens to be able to file, submit, and track all of their permit activity. But right now, that's just been in the planning stage. We have been discussing that with staff internally. And looking at pricing, there would be an additional cost, but there would also be additional or issues with communicating with our finance software.
Okay. It just seems like, I mean, we're trying, right now is trying to bring in economic development, but I don't want it to get hung up at the building department with issues. And I mean, we have, personally, I have to pull permits from different states, and I've just never seen it. I feel like we're really behind the times without having this software. I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I think it's important. I don't know if we can expedite this, or have you looked into MGO Connect? Because it seemed like it was a...
We have not. We were currently looking at 2 or 3 other software providers that have done this for a long period of time. But in most recently, because the city is looking to upgrade the Tyler servers and the rest of the city's internal infrastructure, we weren't going to be included in that. But in the last month, or in the last couple of weeks, actually, Tyler just announced that they have purchased MyGov. So there is a possibility in initial discussions with our IT director and our Tyler support person. They're indicating that we may be able to get that software for the same cost that we're spending right now for our current software.
Okay.
We just don't know what that timeline looks like. So we are still continuing to look at possible solutions and then bringing a package before council for approval for any type of budget amendment that we would have.
Okay, I would fully support that, and I think that's important. So, thank you.
How many permits are issued or applied for each month?
Each month?
Roughly.
It's varying. I know it just seems like last year, or we just got through year-end numbers.
Okay.
Approximately 2,500.
Okay.
But that includes a lot of, small service type permits.
Thank you.
So
I do permitting every day with some of the major cities, Austin, Houston, El Paso, San Antonio. It's to me, it slows the process down. Of course, I'm on the other end. And it drags on, it causes a lot of interface, time after time after time, question after question after question, in trying to interpret what they want on these permit sets and rejections. Just went through it today with Austin. But I think as a small city, I think meeting in person and explaining the process and the project face-to-face with those applicants, I think is more important in trying to streamline this, because it's just one visit then. It's not question after question after question online. You're talking to a computer. You're not talking to a person. And I think that's part of the problem. I mean, I know you guys meet a lot with applicants, I mean, all day long. Mm-hmm. And so it's just my opinion is, I don't mind a portal for initial application, but once it's in, I think meeting face-to-face is way more important than trying to keep up with a portal. I mean, how many times have you rejected and found comments on the edge at this point? How many times does that come in?
Which, on the multifamily portion?
Yeah.
Or,
essentially
it
the
varies.
project.
What's that?
Essentially the project.
We've probably had 3 resubmittals, and there's still some outstanding items. We do offer, I mean, really, again, as you mentioned, our issue is as a smaller city, we are kind of tied into our software. We use what resources we have available, whether that's in code or, using all the Microsoft products as far as Outlook and communicating with others and trying to provide letters. Certainly a portal-based software tracks all of that. So, we're having to do a lot of different steps in different places and then push that all into the software to document it as opposed to, as Councilmember Rasco mentioned, or any of the other cities that are using a web-based software, then ideally all of that interaction's happening in that portal, and then all of the documents are being generated out of that. So we do have we spend a lot of time and personnel hours in just documentation or managing all of that documentation, trying to get back to people and getting that out. So, anything that we can do to help streamline that process or put it in one place, because right now we have to go look in a number of places to answer all of those questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do we know what the cost is for the software? For a complete package, something similar to our municipalities our size?
So the vendors that we've been looking at have, in just preliminary numbers, approximately, just on our software out of the city's budget, we're spending approximately $7,500 a year, which isn't a lot. The vendors that we've been looking at would be preliminary numbers would probably be about double that on a yearly basis, so about $14,000 to $18,000 a year. And the initial year, the first year's setup, there's usually a transfer of information and setup of the system. So we're looking at about $25,000 to $30,000 the first year, with an annual cost of about $16,000 to $18,000 per year, are just the preliminary numbers that we've seen.
I would like to see a lot more information, but some of the other municipalities our size are using.
I'm sorry, I'd like to chime in on this. I do feel for the building department and those people that are having to pull permits, and it might be taking a little longer than expected. I was just recently made aware that they were having these issues as they were interviewing potential software packages. I think it's important to me and my staff, certainly, and I think something that y'all should be aware of is that the platforms that they're interviewing with now have no way to talk to our financials. So what they're potentially proposing is we'll be keeping 2 sets of books. Now, that might be fine for building, and you can get your permit faster. However, it's going to shift all that workload over to the finance department. So is Encode the greatest? I've explored and interviewed and sat through software demos after demo, and it's the best look, we're a small municipality. Our largest revenue source is enterprise fund. And I'll get into that in the financial report here later. Our largest revenue source is enterprise fund. Encode, Tyler Technology, has built on the back of their enterprise fund module. So what does that mean? That means your water bill, your trash bill, all of that, it talks. That we're talking $15 million in invoicing and recouping those receivables. So do we switch? Do we go to a powerhouse like an Oracle, which I'm currently talking with? It's significant costs. At what level is it? I mean, does anybody want to look at cost-benefit analysis on things like that? Again, I know there's some frustration. I hear it now that the building department, it's slow on permits. Encode's not performing as they'd like. The thing about Encode, I will also say, is that they listen to their users and they're working hard to try and make that a more functional product. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't go with the MGO or the other various softwares. I'm just letting y'all know maybe we should look at the whole picture before we just opt into doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, council. This is just for discussion. Do we need any direction to staff as to this point?
I just wanted to bring attention to the matter.
Okay, thank you. 5.2, discussion regarding planning and zoning meeting attendance and canceled meetings due to lack of quorum.
Okay, this is another one. Maybe shouldn't have been on the agenda, but since we're here, if you don't mind pulling up that one planning and zoning report, Gail. I was told that there was a lot of planning and zoning meetings canceled, and I was told it was for lack of quorum. And come to find out, it is not. They met 5 out of 12 meetings last year, and only 1, I think, was for lack of quorum. But if they have a lack of agenda items, that is in their charter to reschedule or postpone. So there's the list if y'all want to take a look. But that's it. I wasn't sure. I would have pulled this off. I didn't know it was still on here if I'd already received the information. But since we're here, I thought I'd show y'all the page. So we could move on to 5.3 if anybody has questions.
Any more discussion? 5.3, discussion regarding employee positions funded by hot funds as well as the changes from funds from last year.
Okay, this is a little tricky. We don't seem to have a lot of cohesiveness on the budget graphs versus the figures. And I was trying to get clarification on all this, and I've been told that, for instance, the graphs will say that some funds for personnel comes from EDC. If you can show one of those graphs. However, if you go to EDC fund for personnel, it doesn't show that.
And again, on that one, what we were talking about was EDC Administrative Services Agreement comes over to council, so that's not going to show on there as well.
Right, so, and Gail was...
coordinator position.
She told me that, I don't have the email right this in front of me, but if you want to tell me again how it transfers in and out.
So there's an agreement that comes over to council from the corporation, and it allows, just like our enterprise fund, they don't have their own business functions. They don't have a finance department. They don't have a public affairs department, GIS department. So we do calculations of certain percentages of our employees. A little over $100,000 is an administrative services agreement that comes before council that's approved. You'll see the $111,000, I believe it is, in the EDC budget. So we're not seeing personnel cost in EDC because they're city employees. They're charged to the general fund, and then a transfer or a payback from EDC to general fund happens. That goes into your revenue sheet. So when you're in the budgets and you look at the revenues, you'll see that EDC transfer.
Okay, so that's still a little hard for me to understand, but Gail did say that maybe they can show it a little bit different moving forward on the budget, so it's not so confusing.
And you did reference, I saw the email that referenced the discrepancy, and I think what you're talking about is the organizational chart, and again, the citywide organizational chart I failed to update it. So it should read 50% funded out of general fund and 50% funded out of hot tax, roughly, for certain positions, and then the hotel occupancy fund is paying essentially a full 2 FTEs. So half of the public affairs position and half the multimedia position, and then the one tourism event coordinator. And I apologize if I'm murdering y'all's titles.
Right.
But those are the 3 positions in question. Again, on the general fund side, it's half general fund, half hot.
Okay, and that also, I just want to confirm that the hot funds that we can use the hot funds for salary personnel, because from what I'm understanding, and Gail referenced this law for Texas, that, allows proceeds of the hot funds to be covered the portion of administrative costs that are directly attributable to work on activities that may be funded by the tax. So I would interpret that as your 100%, like the multimedia who's actually recording our videos right now.
Well, the multimedia is 50%, so half their time is, so the
Okay.
100% is the
Tourism.
tourists.
Right, okay. But is half of her time, is that justifiable? That 100% of that, Lexi's position, is she doing that 100% of her day? I feel like it's a slippery slope. And I worry about the repercussions if we're not doing it right. Maybe this is a question for David, but can we
I mean,
use-
I would certainly, I'm not those individual supervisors.
Right.
I hope that those are in alignment with state law.
Yes, and we take special attention, so when we've gone through the compensation studies, we just updated all our job descriptions. We hired appropriately on those job descriptions to meet the intent of the law, yes.
Okay. All right, that really answers my questions. I just wanted to put that out in the public so we have it on record.
Any more discussion? Okay. 5.4, discussion regarding Old Seabrook business signage.
Okay, this is just an idea. I posted on social media and I got a really good response. Please ignore my little mock-up that I did real quick, but it's similar to what Webster has on their hotels. And I was hoping that this is something that we could do outside of the sign study that we were considering a while back. Something that can bring advertisement to Old Seabrook specifically, because there is no signage and those businesses are truly struggling. If you could show the Webster sign, it's similar, but so what's nice about this, I think, is the panels can be removed as if things change. I unfortunately don't have a price on it. I was there. The Sign Quick did this Webster's sign, but then they had, I guess they were in charge of the install too, and they had to deal with permitting and getting utilities marked, and they didn't like to do that. So they suggested I'm working with Sign City now in Webster to get pricing, but I just don't have it as of right now.
So the Webster sign is where? I mean,
That's on Bay Area, it's a ways from the freeway, but it's before the first light.
But are these directing it to a business or just telling everybody that we have these in Webster?
Pretty much.
Because
They're
it
saying
doesn't
that-
look like there's any direction.
Right, it's just saying that
Just
we're.
that we have this.
Right, in this direction.
So find your own way to these.
Well, I was thinking if we were to do Seabrooks, what would qualify some of these, I would like to see it be done for retail as well and also for the fish markets, but to have a storefront and a website, people quickly look up, addresses, hours, and things, or the menu or whatever. But a lot of people don't even know, like Damn Fine Pies and Coffee is back there, or Genuine Treasures, or Seabrook Cheese Company, I just wanted to see if you guys thought it would be worth exploring any further.
I have no objection with it, but my question would be, what about like Ma's Nursery and Zane's and Miramar and Mirabelle's, et cetera, the other businesses we have in other parts of the city? So how do we address that?
I mean, the first task is to get people off the highway and move in here. As far as phasing signage through, we would start in Old Town Seabrook and move forward from there and grow it as it goes forward. And where that financing comes from, budget's coming up, not that far away. We could look for ways to do that. But the first step, a sign that nobody sees doesn't do any good. We have to get people off the highway. We have to get people down NASA 1 to get them to where they could see directional signs. Now, I don't know where you're really thinking about that, but Gail, we first talked about directional signage and perimeter signage before I got elected 4 years ago. So I absolutely agree with having some sort of signage, but we got to start from the outside in and then phase through what we can afford at the time to make sure all of our businesses are taken care of.
And there's some restrictions too with TxDOT, and that's a whole another hundreds of pages, but we need to have an idea. Would it be worth it to try to get a committee together that maybe would find some graphic artists, beside, you know, because I am not one, to,
Graphic artists don't matter until you know where you're going to put.
and also to coordinate where we want these signage. I think we're going to need a couple of them, you know, one maybe on the west side of NASA going towards 146, and then also somewhere along the feeder northbound on the east side, or maybe even on Main. I don't know. But I mean, anything is better than nothing, and that's where we're at right now. And I could hear their frustration because they were like, we've been talking about signs for years, and it's just nothing's coming to fruition. And that's where we need to make something happen.
Well, these signs here are all in Webster, are all hotel signs.
Right.
Didn't we have the discussion, Mike, of putting the hotels out on the highway?
Yeah, but I'm not.
So that's happening. So that's,
Right.
that's what this is, right?
Well, that was just a inspiration pick. I'm not talking about hotels. We're getting the signage through the Tech Stop program. I'm talking about old Seabrook businesses, starting with restaurants or eats and treats, or however you want to put it. And then I'd like to see something for the retail and services, like the barber shops. And, you know, again, you need a qualifier for who's going to get a sign and how we go about the first expense, and then the, you know, reoccurring expense as things either get faded or changed. You know, there's a lot still to look into that, but I mean, we need to start somewhere.
Yeah, in Old Seabrook too, you could actually have that sign with the business, and then in that part of the town, you could have the arrows, you know, take a right, take a left, go straight. That would work, so.
Again, I don't have any problem with it, but if I'm on the other end of town and I see city money, my property taxes are being spent for signs in Old Seabrook and not my business out by Donald's Donuts or Zane's or places like that, I may have an issue with that. So if we go forward, I think we address the city as a whole, not just, I mean, it's an expense, obviously.
Well, I would like to see, and I don't have a problem with this, and it's probably a very good idea for Old Seabrook, but I'd like to see the money come out of EDC. I think if we're talking about the restaurants, EDC, this could be an EDC project.
For sure.
And you know, I don't have any problem putting signs in Old Seabrook to start with, but I do believe that down the road, we are going to have to address our other businesses.
For sure.
And so, you know, putting a sign in Old Seabrook that lists the restaurants or the retail areas, I have no problem with. This isn't the most attractive sign, but we could probably do
Right,
something.
that's what I'm saying. If we had some volunteer graphic designers in the community that would be willing to.
But I don't think, I think it ought to come out of EDC.
I
So,
agree.
Well, remember, this also came up because of the sign study was just for, the original part was just for Old Seabrook. So that's why she's talking about just Old Seabrook. I understand the other sides of town need signs too, but originally that was just for Old Seabrook,
Well, I
so
think
this was the
originally-
solution.
It was for gateway,
for our
our
gateway,
wayfinding.
it wasn't just Old Seabrook.
Just for clarification, the proposal that EDC did hear and was brought over to council that was pricey, that we discussed, I've been working with that consultant to try to come up with what we're talking about right now is where would you like, if money's not an option and all phases were put in, how do you draw them to the district? So we've been working back and forth, still not getting them all the data points that they need. So I do hear the fact that you would like a committee. I just would ask council is if we are going to brand something in the district, are we looking at sign families that will ever look cohesive together from the highway to the districts?
Well, I think council kind of nixed that, doing an entire branding package. I guess that was my thought, that what happened at that meeting, that council kind of nixed that. I would like to see one sign in Old Seabrook with the restaurants listed and see what it looks like, see what it does, and we can go from there. But I think getting one done is a step forward, and see how it's arranged. And I mean, I don't think that's going to be that costly, and see what happens in Old Seabrook. I can't make that motion.
Well, we don't have all the information right now.
discussion anyway, and I think we need to go to EDC to get this done.
I agree. Okay, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I'll get more information on pricing, and then maybe I'll present it at EDC.
Okay, thank you. 5.5, discussion regarding city-owned property and how the property is used.
Okay, I was just inquiring about all the city property we have that are not right-of-ways or easements or for parks, and I got a list from either Rachel or Gail, but I just wanted to go a little bit further and discuss it with y'all, because I think there are a few that are not, okay, let's just, wait, there's 11 properties that I question, and I have probably no, some of these are actually, might be a right-of-way at this point. 1304 First Street is a vacant lot. See, and they're also on here, they're noted as admin on the list I got, so that's another reason I had questions. Well, some of them are for trails or for easements, but these are listed as admin. So 1304 First Street looks to be off of, kind of behind Meyer. I don't know what that is for. Do you? Is that?
It's a piece of easement that we've had for years. It was identified when the subdivision, oops, as you can see, just to the north. So the new subdivision that was going in, we identified it would be a good trail link that would get people back over to Main Street. So we identified that as a trail segment. And we haven't put that in yet, but it's just some property that we've had on the books for a while.
Okay. That answers that. All right, and then the next one was the Bath Avenue and First Street. That one I couldn't find in HCAD, but you sent you have a paper here, or a deed, I guess. I'm not sure what it says. Do you have the gist of it?
It's submerged property that was given to the city.
And what are we planning on doing with it?
It was, looks like to be with the paperwork that we have, it was going to be back taxes. They ended up deeding it over to the city, but everything that we can find, it's completely submerged.
Okay, all submerged. Okay, Pirates Island, another one I couldn't find. Not sure where this is in the city.
Our notes show it's submerged.
Okay, I'll see if some of this was updated on the, I don't know if this is an internal document that you have, but that would be helpful. So they're all not in question. Shady Lake subdivision. There's, this is actually right behind Lake Point Forest. And they're building maybe 5 new homes right down here, but it looks to be like we have this big empty lot on the very end. Kind of looks like their park, but they don't have an HOA. So I'm not sure why we own that and what we intend on using it for. Just curious.
Been on the books for a long time.
Okay. So we've got properties just sitting out here. I just want y'all to know that. I don't know why we're sitting on it. Why don't we?
The one you're mentioning, clearly the water.
No, this is not. I've driven by it several times lately. It's a big park. There's a bench there, just a big, somebody's maintaining it. I encourage anybody to go look at Shady Lake, and we'll come back to this. I just wanted to have this on record of what properties we have that maybe we could use for something. Okay, Lake Cove subdivision. It looks like a residential lot inside the neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there, I think originally, Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when the subdivision was going to break out into the vacant land that you see just to the right of that green square, there was going to be another section. So there was going to be an access through there. There's also, I think, some drainage requirements in that area, so it's been reserved for years at this point.
That was to be an access to 146 at one point. The builder was going to put a road through there. The property is not buildable.
Isn't Ellis Cove right here behind it now?
Huh?
No? So it's definitely not buildable?
No,
It's just it's an empty lot in a subdivision, so we keep it mowed.
I know, but it's a resident, it's 2205 Waterways was what the actual address is. It might be taken off the books and 0 Waterway now, but
Really, and a lot of the development, as you see to the right of that, it was contingent on what was going to really happen on this corner, and still is, as what needs to be done with that lot. So we've kind of sat on it and reserved it for, I think, since that subdivision was built.
Okay, just was thinking if it's a residential lot that can be buildable, why don't we sell it?
Because we may need it to connect the road out of this subdivision, or we may need it to allow drainage for this subdivision to work it all together.
Where is Ellis Cove on that map? Do you know?
Where's the what?
Where's Ellis Cove, the new neighborhood that backs up to Lake Cove on this map?
This is 146 that you see
Oh,
to the
that's
right.
146, gotcha. Okay, no, I was confused on,
146, and that's the one right down
okay,
there. There's all the trees you can see
Gotcha.
on the side of it, and if this section ever gets developed,
gotcha.
have access on the
Okay,
side
that
as
makes more
well.
sense now.
So we need to hold on to it until
Right.
something, because something could happen there, and we get rid of it. Besides, it's a little bitty for a lot,
Right,
not really gold.
okay. Zero Lakeside, you said that was a lift station, so that makes sense. And then the next several, we've purchased not that long ago, or in the 2018, looks like 2019, 2020, that I guess we're going to hopefully make a parking lot for future businesses. Hopefully we'll move on that sooner than later.
So the property I think that you're referencing, there's 3 lots. The picture that's on the screen right now is the one that faces Main Street, directly to the right of Merlion if you're facing it. So it was future looking forward of trying to figure out additional parking for the old Seabrook district. We talked a little bit with the EDC recently that the Livable Center study has shown that there's a huge deficit for parking. So that was part of the EDC and the city council moving to acquire that. In addition, it could be developed residential, and that was the other thing of trying to grab some parcels that we could develop as commercial. We've solicited for additional businesses to come in, potentially talking about economic development incentives, and then increasing that public parking like the EDC paid for in the back behind Merlion. That's a public parking space, and you could see in some of the exhibits, I think in the livable study, that you could bring and extend that parking over so we could double the district parking.
I would love to see that. I think it is an issue, and I don't think that the parking lot behind Merlion is listed as public parking or signage to any of that. I don't think people realize that, so that would be nice to see some signs for that. And then the last one is the rep store location.
So this is one of our more recent acquisitions, and the green on your screen is really just half. We've acquired both of the green space that you see where there's no buildings. That was recently acquired because when we started the conversation about doing an EMS station, that was going to be the location for that. We ultimately downsized it, and we're doing the expansion onto the fire department. As most people know, the second fire station right now is actually located in the city of El Lago. And so there's been discussions of, is it make sense to reserve this if there's ever a need, if the station in El Lago becomes inaccessible and we need a second station on this side of town. So definitely would be up to council if they wanted to release this, but that's what we were holding at this point for.
Okay, that's all I really wanted to do. I
Was
just
that
wanted-
not given to us by the developer?
No, not this one on Rep Store if we did a purchase.
Okay.
That's all I just wanted to talk about that, so thank you.
5.6, discussion regarding the installation of lights at the new pickleball courts located behind the city splash pad. Mike?
Well, I just put this on the agenda because I've been driving by there quite a bit, and it's been used tremendously. I mean, which is a huge success for us, and I think they're enjoying it. The question that I have is, I'd love to see us put some type of light out there just for the evening. I don't want to disturb the neighbors around it, obviously. I just think if we had some type of light, it might get used a little bit more in the evening time, because when summer gets here, it's going to be very hot. They're not going to want to, use it during the day. So I thought if there's lights there in the evening, they can at least take advantage of using it in the evening time. That's just so I wanted to just kind of bring it up for discussion. I talked to the chief a little bit about this and Gail, and to see if there's been any incidents, since we don't have any, because I don't know, you guys drive by there, it's really dark at night, and it just bothers me, and I just want to see if there's anything happening over there. We really don't have any incidents at all recorded for 2024 period, not once, in knock on wood. But 2023, there was a couple, but it was all during the day. There was 3 of them, and it was during the day. So not having any lights there is good. I don't know if that's going to hurt us if we do add a light. Now you're going to bring people out there. So you guys kind of help me out with this and see. I just kind of wanted to bring it.
Also, they have lights in the big front of that, but it's at the parking lot. I don't know if those stay on all night.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, so I don't know how much.
I like the idea of the lights. The only
I do
thing, the best way to deal with the lights, especially with the neighbors right behind there in Lake Cove, and I actually know some of them, just put the deflectors on. Once you put the deflectors on, the light is just shine right where you need it. It doesn't go off everywhere. The worst thing it is when you drive down a road and you're just staring into a bright light for no reason. You know, I have excellent night vision, but I don't like that. You know, but we actually have an ordinance against having lights that are just shining out for just any which way. They have to be directed, and you have to have the deflectors on them.
And it could be on a timer too, possibly, like at 10 o'clock it goes off. You know, I don't know what we could do, but I wanted to bring it up for discussion.
We have a dark sky ordinance in the city. You're not allowed 1-foot candle trespass across the fence line. So, you know, if that can be accomplished, sure.
Okay, I will just offer at Bay Park, tennis courts, pickleball courts, we had lights, and unfortunately, we had some bad actors coming in, and it got later and later and louder and louder, and so the lights went off, and they've been off for about, I guess, 4 years now.
Right.
But that, not to say yay or nay, just for information purposes.
Exactly.
But I think those were supposed to go back in. Didn't remember we talked about that a couple of months ago.
We talked about it, but right now we don't have a project or funding for anything.
I mean, I think it was missing its light bulbs.
As far as I know, Brian, I don't know if you're still here, I think the old canisters that we have right now will have to do full electrical work, so we probably need to get quotes on more modern fixtures, I believe at Baybrook, correct?
Oh.
Yeah, we're working to get quotes from taking those old lights down and putting new modern lights up that have the shields.
Okay.
So yeah, we've
I just thought it was missing light bulbs.
No.
So
We've reached
even-
out to 2 companies and haven't heard back from them.
Even last night when I drove by, the light that we have on the pump room that's for the splash pad, that puts off a lot of light, believe it or not. Even putting one of those on the back side of the building facing the court maybe suffice. It might work because that's already pretty bright as it is. And so the neighbors don't say anything about that light. So I would think if we did something similar, might work. Just a suggestion.
Well, and I will tell you, the park superintendent's also doing some research on some new lights. They're like the gaming lights, the LED strings that would fit up underneath the top post of a fence. So we're looking at pricing on that. We haven't seen that before, but that wouldn't be.
I haven't seen that. Okay.
I certainly would think we ought to poll the neighbors that are right behind it. I mean, there's not 5 or 6 of them, but we ought to at least poll them and at least talk to them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do anything without involving them into the discussion.
I think it's a great idea.
5.7, discussion regarding the $2,000 in the budget for the annual Christmas boat parade.
This is like the 3rd or 4th time, but so I want to get the timeline exact. So from 2017 to 2021, you originally had said that you were taking care of it, but then you clarified by saying that it was from your stipend, okay? But when you look up stipends, you can't use your stipend for groups or organizations. Actually, for the state code, Article 16, Section 50 prohibits stipends to that. Then also Article 3, Section 52 prohibits it. But anyway, it's talked about that multiple times. Okay, then it went from we talking about it at Hot Tax, and Buddy, you brought this up. You said we were talking about it up here at this dais. Well, we stopped talking about it in 2021. It never was discussed again here in council. It was discussed at EDC, had to pull those up. So EDC took it over. And this is the Christmas boat parade. So EDC was then paying for it. But during their records, it says most of the people stayed over in League City. We weren't putting heads in beds. That's per the documents that I pulled up. So then I guess EDC gave it up. So here's my question, and this goes to the city manager. When EDC stopped funding the Christmas boat parade, how did it get on the general fund? I've not heard that yet.
So I went back also and looked. A lot of times when we have those budget workshops, the only thing I can figure is that we did during those presentations in a more relaxed atmosphere where you didn't have a motion that it was introduced, that EDC didn't want it. It was coming back in. We put in the legislative budget, and ultimately it was approved. But I agree, there's nothing in the minutes that is showing that there was actual motion that I can find as well.
Okay, so that's the first I've gotten to this, so very happy about that. So it actually says in the Local Government Code, Chapter 252, general funds require explicit council approval, so we should have never done it the way we did it. So, and the reason I bring all this up is this is not complaints, it's just, we have to follow these laws and rules. I had to, especially when it came to the 2 flagpoles that got put up. But now in this, we used stipend money, which can't. And then the other thing too, when it goes back to the stipend money, council gets $1,800. It says the mayor gets $2,400. But we go to Harris County Mayors and Council, we go to Galveston County Mayors and Council, and during that time, there was trips to Washington, D.C. I was on them, and so was the mayor. So there's no rhyme or reason. I mean, if you're spending some of that to go to Harris County Mayors and Councils, which is $50 a person, and by the way, it's well worth it to go to those meetings.
Well,
But
Joe, you're not, when I was doing it, I got permission from Buddy, because Buddy was doing his cancer treatments. He wasn't going to any place. He told me to go ahead and use his stipends during those years to fund the Christmas boat parade. So that's where it was all coming from. And I don't agree that, I think you and I both went on a trip to Washington using stipends.
Twice we did. Oh, yeah, you can use stipends to go to Washington. Yeah, that's what you use.
But that's a group event.
But that's a what?
That's a group event. Like you just said, you couldn't use a group event.
Well, and it's actually, it's, okay, giving money to a group out of a stipend, you can't do that. Using it for yourself to physically go, even though it's a group.
It's an event. The boat parade is an event, just like Harris County Mayors and Council, just like BAHAP, just like the balls, the Quasar Banquet. Those are the same items. It all comes out of the legislative budget for our stipends.
Right.
It doesn't anymore. We don't have a stipends. But back then, it was just an event.
Right. Well,
I don't see a difference between what, a banquet is compared to a boat parade. We could have dropped the boat parade.
But wasn't it used for, was it what was it for advertisement or it was a donation?
Coming out of hot. It was
Right.
coming out of.
it originally came out of stipend money, then it went out of,
Stipends is legislative.
right, but then it came out of EDC's,
That was EDC.
yeah, well, originally it came out of your stipend, then it came out of EDC, and they just labeled it as, I have it right here, it came out of, it was just like a check.
Economic development.
Yeah, but it was just like a check, and so.
It was part of the chamber. It's a chamber event.
Correct.
And so EDC funds the chamber.
Right.
It was just an additional event that the chamber puts on that EDC paid for.
Right, well then EDC, when I looked at their minutes, and they said they didn't want to fund it, and that's why I guess it went. So the big point I'm bringing up is, I remembered talking about this in 2021, up here at the dais, And then we pushed it away. We said, no, we're not going to do it. Then it went to EDC, fine. But once EDC said no, and then all of a sudden you see the Christmas boat parade coming, I'm like, well, how'd that happen? And that's what I was trying to get to, and I finally got to it tonight, which was you talked about it, it got put into a general thing. But the other thing too, in reading all this, is like our stipend has to, your and I stipend especially, because we're coming off in May, that has to be prorated. We don't get the full, I don't get the full 1,800 for this year because I'm coming off. And in that section, and I just heard this about Buddy giving you his, you can't do that. I'm just letting you know. It just says you can't, I can't give mine to Mike. I can't, you just can only use yours. It's very clear on that.
Well, we stopped the stipends when? How long ago?
Well, in defining stipends, so we have the amounts that Joe was talking about in our budget. It's all lumped together for all 7 of you.
Right.
The city secretary, when you're going to meetings, those are allotted towards each one of your accounts. So internally, we're keeping track of your stipends and then crediting against if you have a meeting cost or a trip cost of any sort.
Okay.
We call it stipends, but it's not clarified as stipends.
Like many years ago, right, many years ago, council did get a paper check every month. IRS came out with some rulings, and then it became reimbursed only. So we hold the funds, and we charge against if it's a city-type function.
It's still considered, per the law, it's still considered a stipend. I understand why we did it that way, because after $600, you need a 1099. So that's why they did it for that. And we were getting all this stuff, and we're like, I didn't spend that, so why am I getting this from the IRS? I understand that part. All I'm saying is we got to clean it up. But the big part that really, I guess, was my big issue was once council said no, then EDC said no. I was like, how did it get into the general budget? But it clearly talks about local government code, chapter 252. You have to be very explicit when it comes to that. So, because you told me over the phone that the many items like this happen. And so that's why I'm like, wow, that's scary, because if this is just 2,000, what else was out there? So that's why I'm bringing it up. I just wanted to make that crystal clear and clarify it, because all we're trying to do is be super transparent. And we even had a speaker tonight talking about, let's just be better communication and better transparent, so.
Well, I thought that 2 meetings ago, we decided to let HOT committee look at this and decide whether or not that would be a HOT funded item. So is that not what we want to do now?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what we want to do now.
Okay,
Let them
so
handle
I'm
it.
confused as to why we're discussing this.
Because I was clarifying up, because the last meeting,
All right.
you and Buddy both said that we discussed this a bunch of times recently at the dais, but it was EDC dais, not council dais.
Okay. All right, 6.0, routine business. 6.1, monthly financial report for January 2025. Is that?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present the financial report for the city. It's been brought to my attention that although I've been doing this for 17 years, maybe not the entire time, not everybody's fully aware of how the local government is budgeted, where the funds come from, the purpose of their use. I thought with all the new candidates in attendance, it would be a good opportunity to kind of tie that into our financial report. So I will try and be quick, but I did want to kind of go a little bit more in depth on city government. So just to touch on the form of government, city manager, council form of government, established by charter. City manager has certain vested powers to run the day-to-day operation. City council has their own obligations and functions that they must do in their roles. Our financial structure, we follow several acronyms, GAP, GFOA, GASB, generally accepted accounting principles, general Governmental Finance Officers Association, and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So they kind of highlight what we're required to do, how we're required to report, track financials, and for those unaware, we account for things through fund accounting. This isn't official, but I once had a professor who break it down really easy, made it easy for me, but hopefully this helps. If you consider each fund like a separate business, it has its own books, it has its own operations, its own purpose. Here's our layout of our fund structure, our general fund, our debt service, enterprise. We have 24 special revenue funds. Of those, 6 of them are what we call capital improvement funds. We have 2 component units, the Economic Development Corporation and Crime District. General fund, this is what most people consider what I call your basic government. I'm not going to read through all these slides. It's a lengthy presentation. I'm just going to hit on some of them. I'm going to make it available to council as well as to the public. But things such as city administration, finance, legislative, parks, public works, the police department, EMS. Again, those are some of what is in your general fund. This is a very condensed summary of our general fund. It's just comparing. We balance and adopt a budget that is a $0 budget, meaning we're balanced. Our total revenues budgeted for this year, as you can see, it's $16 million. It matches our expenses for the general fund budget. At the time, many people are referencing our budgets that are online. At the time we adopted the budget, our fund balance was $9,673,000. As you can see, there's no planned budgeted change in fund balance. So that means if everything goes as planned, we'll end up with $9 million in our fund balance. It's been brought to my attention that several people have been worried about the emergency fund, the stability of the city. Last meeting, several people were arguing with our financial advisor who was talking about the strength of the city's financials. We have what is required in our fund balance. Our emergency fund balance is 25% of our operating costs, excluding the transfers in from other funds. Our transfers out to other funds, because simply when there's an emergency, those aren't conducted, because you're using all of your funds to get the city back under control. For those of y'all that were here in 2008 and lived through Ike, then you witnessed the power that having a healthy fund balance has, because our city, with our public works crew, our administration, our public works, and our finances, not the finance department, but our actual money, we were able to start spending money and getting the city back under control. We had lines of people, the officers had to keep them out until it was safe for them to come back, which meant we had to get certain things done in order for that to happen. It couldn't have happened without an emergency reserve balance. Ours is very healthy. Well, ours is 25% of our operating, but our overall fund balance is very healthy. And again, going back to the storm, many sister cities around us had to wait for their insurance checks. They had to wait for TML. They had to wait for FEMA to give them money so that they could do operations. We jumped in and got things done. In our fund balance of that $9 million, we have $1.6 million that council, through their authority, committed, meaning we are holding it in reserve. People often refer to it as the port money. This money was given to us through some settlement from the port. That's the $1.6 million. That is in your fund balance. That leaves us $3.6 million in unreserved fund balance. So if y'all would stick up for us, and when people post ridiculous things that say we don't have a healthy fund balance, I disagree. Here is a breakout of our budgeted revenues. As you can see, and this is just for the general fund alone. I'm giving you the percentages of our overall budget per category. So 43% of our ad valorem taxes go to cover our maintenance and operation budget. There's been, 17% is our sales tax. Again, those are our big revenue drivers. The other one, again, is our transfer in from multiple funds. Y'all alluded to EDC, Enterprise Fund, to cover administrative costs that they would otherwise have to provide for in their separate fund. So how do we pay for that? Well, as you can see, 43% comes from property tax. So we adopt a tax rate. It's broken out into two parts. The maintenance and operations, the 35 cents. I'm not going to read all 6 digits. Y'all can read. 35 cents is maintenance and operation. That is that $7 million on the other slide. This is the portion of our two-part tax rate that funds maintenance and operations in general fund. The 10 cents funds our annual debt obligation. So that brings our total property tax there to 45 cents. It's been asked about how much is residence, how much is commercial. Our makeup of the city of Seabrook is currently funded by 78% of the residents make up our property tax. What that means in our general fund, when you're looking at that $7 million, that's 33% coming from your residential property tax. This is including, because some people are confused, apartments and multifamily dwellings on our tax roll show up as residential homes. So consider that. Here's a breakdown. I took a snapshot just because the numbers were getting small. I stopped at 2019. If you go back even further, the decrease is an even greater percentage. If you go back to when I started in 2008, here our tax rate, it gives you the maintenance and operation, again funding our general fund, and the debt service fund serving our annual debt obligations. As you can see, in 2019, we were at 55 cents. We've dropped down to 45 cents over those last few years. Our other big sales tax driver, our revenue driver in our general fund is our sales tax. And again, I just took that same snapshot just to show you where we've come from and where we're at now as far as our sales tax. Again, going back to 2008 when I began, I know, we lost a lot of businesses. Our sales tax number was 1.3 million. So what does that mean? I don't know. I guess it means we're doing okay. Can we do better? Absolutely. But it's not time to throw in the towel on the city. Types of debt. Again, our financial advisor was here last week talking about the differences. I wanted to include it because we're going to talk about debt service, general obligation bonds, your GO bonds. Those are approved by council, approved by the voters, secured by property tax, required by law to have a levy, to levy a tax to repay those bonds. Your COs, or certificate of obligations, are approved by city council. They're also secured by property tax. There is a requirement that if there's no other funding source, then they would be required to be funded by your property tax. However, as the gentleman had spoke earlier, we have several certificates of obligation. They're funded out of enterprise fund, and they're done so for a reason, mainly because GASB tells us we have to. You want to allocate your expenses to where the services are being provided. So those COs are not to build a park or make a pool or anything else. The COs that are funded by the enterprise fund are your $40 million wastewater treatment plant that we're just now completing. It's the water lines, the sewer lines, the infrastructure that you need to have in this city, and you're going to have to fund it some way. You're not ever going to have the $14 million or $10 million that we need to build a wastewater treatment plant, even with a grant. So you have got to issue debt. Now, I'm not saying you got to issue this debt. I'm not counseling. I'm not stepping over that line. I don't mean that. That's y'all's right to vote on what you want, whether or not we need whatever those things are. I'm just not going to mention. Sorry. My point is that debt is a routine part of municipal business that otherwise you would not be able to fund certain projects. Some of those the voters all get to approve on what those are. Some council has voted on behalf of their constituents. Revenue bonds, those are simply backed by, required to have a vote, but required, backed by a revenue stream such as water. They're often more costly. They also require that you set aside bond proceeds, bond covenants, until the debt is fully repaid. Again, the State Infrastructure Bank, when TxDOT came in and widened Highway 146, they said y'all have to move your water lines and you have to, or your utility lines. I don't know if they were water, sewer, maybe both. You got to move them and you got to pay for it. We went to the State Infrastructure Bank to get a loan because it was the lowest way to get that debt and get our lines moved. And that is being paid back by the citizens' water rates. And yeah, sanitation. Debt service, here's a write-up of what it is. Again, I'm not going to read it because my eyes aren't that good. But it highlights here that, again, what our FA, our financial advisor, was saying. We've got an outstanding debt rating, Moody's and Standard & Poor's rating. Second to the top class, and as he alluded to, you can't get a higher rating being this close to the coast. Getting back to our second part of the debt rate, the 10 cents, if y'all recall the slide earlier, the 10 cents is what we've levied this year to help fund the $2.8 million of current year obligations. the debt in this that council has moved forward to being repaid by the debt service fund is the $39 million. It matures in 2049. This is just if you go to our website, you can find all the tax rate calculations, and it just walks you through the no new revenue rate, how we arrive at what we're legally allowed to adopt, and when the voters have recourse on that. It stipulates a multitude of things. Here are some of the debt obligations, past debt obligations. Again, I'm not going to read through all of them. Just going to show you what the issues were and what they funded. This will be available. Y'all can write me if you have complaints about what we funded in the past. But as you can see, $5 million just to do construction on a number of street projects in Old Seabrook. That was completed in 2005. Again, I've laid them out based on the bonds issued, and here's your Public Works Animal Control Facility. That was the big item on that general obligation bond. Up to the latest 2024 bond issue, the $4.4 million, we're a majority of that going to build out EMS facility as an add-on to the existing fire station, and the $1.9 million for the fire engine and fire training tower. There's your state infrastructure bank. So again, I've listed all these. I don't want to waste y'all's time. I want to provide it for those interested. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. Moving on to the enterprise fund. Again, it's got a purpose. We're trying to align the operations, the revenues generated from that operation to fund those expenses. It too has its own fund balance requirement. Here again is a snapshot of where we were at the time we adopted our budget, $2.4 million. Here, we tried to get to a balanced budget. We're showing a $35,000 potential budget going back into fund balance. But again, emergency fund balance, 15% of our expenses less our transfers is required to be kept in our fund balance. And so that's $1.6 million. That leaves us with $800,000 roughly to be as unreserved fund balance. Enterprise fund, again, just the makeup of our revenue sources to the overall by category. As you can see, water services is 43%, sewers 30%, and 23% is our sanitation service. I guess I should have flipped these. This just shows that same slide, just more condensed to give you a clear picture of where we're at. The next several slides, I'm just, again, going to touch on a few. Each fund, each special revenue fund, it has a required purpose on how the funds can be spent, how they're collected, why they're collected. Some are by law, some funds are set up by city council, voted on and approved and funded in the manner in which they adopt that fund. With that said, those are just here to provide as informational purposes. Again, child safety, you could pay for child crossing guard attendance. Step fund, again, a lot of these funds are derived off of citations that are issued by law enforcement. Again, we collect them on behalf of the state of Texas. They allow us to keep a certain dollar amount, and those funds are earmarked per what they say they're earmarked for. Public safety fund, again, that's a donated fund created by city council. voluntarily funded by the kindness of the citizens of Seabrook to help with unexpected capital needs for our public safety groups. Hotel occupancy tax, again, there's a plethora of laws restricting these funds. Heads and beds, the most notable, that's where it's all supposed to start. Municipal court, they have several, there's 4 different funds. One's court security, truancy. Again, the names, it's not hidden, it's transparent. What do they fund? Truancy. You want to start a truancy program, you can pay for it out of that. I think we get like 20 cents on a citation or something. So the pot's very small right now. Jury fund, there's, again, it's a fund specifically designated to help the courts run their jury trials, et cetera. Court security, they can fund security operations. Again, they're very specific on what they can fund. This is another fund that was created by council. This is our public safety vehicle equipment replacement fund, funded by Crime District. It's a transfer. We do basically an internal service fund to help ensure that our officers are driving adequate equipment to patrol the streets. PEG fund, required by the state of Texas to use for public education and government access. So the camera's in here. General fund, enterprise fund, another one voted on by council. This is funded by operations out of general fund and the enterprise fund to ensure we always have capital assets for the city staff. I should say public works, parks, water crews, EMS. Budget stabilization, when Highway 146 was coming around, or the text talk was going to widen that, we were planning on losing a number of businesses. We did lose a number of businesses along the corridor. At that time, that council adopted setting aside a budget stabilization. So in the event we fell on hard times with sales tax, we'd have some resources to continue to get us through the end of that budget cycle. Those are still on hold. I think we did draw down on some of those during the budget this past season. Now we're going to get into the capital impact funds. Again, these are special revenue funds. With the exception, I'll start with the capital impact fee. This is a fee charged for whenever building permits are pulled. It's stated what we're required to do, what we're allowed to collect, and there's a whole study that we have to pay engineers to do for us to tell us if we're in compliance, and they basically come back and say, this is what y'all can charge for these different things. Is that kind of it in a nutshell? Okay. Sorry. You can read all about it in Local Government Code 395. I do want to, so Capital Impact Fund 28, this fund we've kind of set it up, council approved this to fund kind of those general fund capital projects that we could sometimes afford if we ever had a pot of money. And so they've, over the years, set aside funds or budgeted funds into this account to help pay for certain capital needs. It's also where we placed our ARPA funds, which was a grant that came out of COVID, the American Rescue Act. Anyway, those funds were used to bore the water line, Taylor Lake water line under Taylor Lake. It had been hanging off the side of a bridge. Fund 29, so these last several capital project funds are where your debt proceeds go. And so again, here, Capital Project Fund, Fund 29, this is a combination of certificates of obligation from 2016 and 2020 to help fund the wastewater retrofit. So initially, in 2016, we embarked upon building what they called a package plant, meaning we were going to build different capacities of the wastewater treatment plant until we arrived at the full capacity. We were blessed to receive a grant for the bulk of that. However, we were then required to come up with 25% of $40 million, hence the need to issue another certificate of obligation to help meet those needs. Here, the Fund 30, wastewater, water and wastewater fund, capital fund. These, the last time we issued certificates of obligation in 2020, we identified a need for smart meters. Again, so we put these monies aside in these specific funds because that's what they're allowed to be used for. Anything stated on your GO bonds or your certificates in those closing documents, that's what we're legally allowed to spend those funds on. So we try and separate them in so they're not commingled with any other fund. So again, going through, I think I've kind of drudged along. You can go through them. I've identified several. I'll get into the component units. Fund 70, Economic Development Corporation. This is funded by 0.5% of our sales tax. So every 0.5 cent goes to EDC. Every 0.5% goes to Crime District to fund those operations. Again, there's a board, there's legal ways and things they're supposed to be doing to promote economic development, et cetera, for the city. Here's the health of that fund at the time of the budget. And then Crime District, again, has, when they adopted, or when the voters approved setting up both the Crime District and the EDC, there's a list of establishing how those funds can be spent and by what means, and that's all that says there. Here's a breakdown of what was budgeted or adopted at this last budget season. So now on to the current financial position. Wow, that's teeny tiny. Is there a way to blow this up? It's still small. So this is our January report. Again, I wanted to lead with that information because I think that I'm not sure anybody knows what I'm talking about when I show this every month. So the figures on the right is our budget number up through January 31st. And coincidentally, next month, it will be through the end of February. This is the actual dollars received. This is where we're forecasting to be based on the actual numbers and any changes to the forecast that might be made. As you can see, we budgeted $7 million. I had to adjust down our property tax. We had, it was showing that we were going to be $870,000 over our budgeted number, and that's typically not how that comes in. I've never seen it. I mean, it won't come in that way. Let me just put it that way. So I've adjusted that to show a more realistic forecast. Again, sales tax is still not performing how we'd like, but I think it's slightly better than last month, if I recall. Franchise tax could be doing a little better. Intergovernmental, we did get reimbursed from the Burl disaster, which is why this fund here is, our line item is so over budget at 562. Anyway, just rolling through the personnel, you can see our expenses. Again, same thing. This is what we're expecting to spend through this last month. This is what we've actually spent, and here's where we plan to be at the end of the year. As you can see right now, as it stands, we're looking at 1.2 million going back into the ending fund balance. This sheet here just shows the comparison of budget to actual and actual to last year's actual. So people that like to have fun with numbers, here's some data for you. That is just those that don't like numbers, here's some data for you. This is a graph that highlights where we were on our monthly sales tax comparison. Again, kind of comparing last year to this year's actual and this year's actual to the budget. There's our sales tax represented, same thing, different visual. And just a visual showing through the years and where we're at currently. This summary breaks out expenses by department. Graph representing those expenses. And then we get into our by category, budgets to actuals, same format. Not trying to not be transparent. This is as transparent as I can be. Budget number in the right column here. Actual, showing the variance on the far right. Our forecast of where we think we're going to be at the end of the year on the far left. And then our budget in that comparison. And then that goes through each category: personnel, services, supplies, capital. And I won't go page by page through that. Y'all can enjoy it. But if you do, I have talked to several candidates running for office. If anybody's interested in coming in and sitting down with Gail and I, we'd be happy to go into further in-depth on these topics with y'all. Here's our enterprise fund. Again, same kind of setup. Budget through January, actual through January, are forecasted for the end of the year. I will say I'll probably get called out on this. Time doesn't, things don't stop. When we adopted the budget in September, if you go back to that general fund slide from the very beginning, I showed $9 million. When you pull up our financial report, a whole month passed, a whole 2 months passed, actually. So there's an unaudited beginning fund balance of 9.1 million. Same thing here with the enterprise fund. I showed you a slide earlier. At the time we adopted our budget, it was 2.4 million. We've since ended the fiscal year. Our now projected, estimated, unaudited fund balance is 2.6 million. And of that, we show a projected $94,000 going back into fund balance. Again, fun with numbers, just showing comparison by revenue category. We can, and then again, the same type of information, just represented differently. Graphics, numbers, graphics, numbers. Going into the personnel and the services, supplies, capital. I'm trying to talk fast. Oh, I didn't change a heading. Eesh. Hotel occupancy, of course. Didn't change that title. This one's actually overperforming. Currently, our revenues are 57,000 over our budgeted number. Expenses have been maintained relatively well, showing 222,000 going back into fund balance. Again, just for those on council unaware, here it shows 424,000 as our starting fund balance. When y'all approved an incentive agreement, we've kind of earmarked the 1.2 million for that incentive. I'm actually meant to show that in a different format. I'll plug that in for next council meeting. Then we hop over to the EDC fund. Again, our sales tax is underperforming. Interest is doing rather well. Overall, our revenues are over our projected, our revenues are over our current budget number. And we're projecting, this fund actually does budget to deficit spend because we are budgeting to do a incentive program to do infrastructure projects to hopefully bring businesses into the city. So that's why we're showing a change in fund balance to the negative there. Again, the sales tax diagram showing comparables. And crime district, again, they're kind of, it's pretty easy to follow here. We typically, if sales tax is down in any area, it's down across the board. And so hopefully those will change over the coming months. But overall, the fund is doing well. It's healthy. It's got a 1.5 million starting fund balance, and we're projecting 60,000 going back into fund balance. So with that, if anybody's still awake, I'll be happy to take questions.
Yeah, I have a few. Okay, one of the things that you talked about was how the city keeps going, but then you had, the budget changed, and it, you had that, what I think the people are saying, and it's people, citizens, they're saying, if you're transparent, then just make a note of that. Hey, hey, our fiscal year comes to an end in like September, October, yet we go for a couple months before I can update all this information. That should be written, that there should be a note that says that. I think, because when people see a difference between one number and another, you understand it because you're dealing with it all the time. They don't deal with it all the time. But that's just something that you just said, it just popped in my head while I'm going, then just make a note and say, I have to do this and keep up with what the city's doing, and that's why this number is going to be different than this number. Then everybody would understand that. It's just a little ticker note that you could add to that and say, this is why you're seeing the difference. And then the other thing is, you talked about, and this was other meetings ago, but that we've used the same auditor for the last, I think, 15 to 17 years, something like that? What is that number?
I think we rebid it. We got the second auditor to come in. That was cycle before, correct?
Yes.
Belt Harris.
I believe it's 6 years, but I don't think it's 15. It might be 7, it might be 6. I know at the last budget meeting, let me back up. At one meeting, the agreement was before council, and we are in the process of putting together a request for qualifications to go out for auditors in the fall. We're currently going through our annual independent audit right now. It is a different organization, but it was an organization that purchased the accounting firm the auditing firm that we were using.
Right. Okay, so my question was, how many years in a row did we use the same one?
So this contract, I think we've done 2 extensions. It's coming up on 7 years.
Okay, so the norm, and if the guy's name is Mickey O'Neill, he's a CPA, he said for cities, it's 3 to 5 years at max you should use. And I didn't meet him at Dairy Queen. I just know the guy and talked to him in Houston. But the point is, when people ask about the money, it's their money. They're not mad at Mike Gibbs. No one's mad at you. No one's going around going, God, this Mike Gibbs is not telling me and not being transparent. No one's mad at you. If they don't understand something, they're going to ask questions. And if they don't get that answer, of course they're going to, hey, what's going on? And then if you watch the news with all the stuff going on in the federal government, I know we're not the federal government, when they see the waste, then they start like, hey, okay, so that's a natural thing people are looking at with this Doge. But my point is, they actually heard, we talked about that we had an accountant or an audit, but it was the same one for over 6 to 7 years. They've heard that. So that's a concern to them because I think they know the same thing, the 3 to 5 year thing. So that's why people were bringing up, hey, we should maybe have an audit. And then the other thing I know, because I've been in many groups and organizations where I was the president, and I always, when I got elected, I wanted to do an audit, and when I left, I wanted an audit to make sure 100% no one could ever say, hey, there's money missing or whatever. I'm getting ready to come off in May, and that's another reason I think we should have some type of independent audit, but I'm also hearing that from the people. But no one's mad. No one's like saying that the city's doing anything nefarious. They just want that, and I think that's a normal, natural thing to do.
I agree. We do conduct an annual independent audit. They're very important. Years ago, before I was finance director, my predecessor was approached with by an auditing firm who presented to the city council at that time. I'm not sure. Maybe y'all were on there. I don't know. And it was there was information presented on the pros and cons of changing every 3 to 5 years on your audit. Now, and I'm not pro or anti either one. I'm just saying how we arrived here. Again, the individuals that presented on that topic talked about things such as the pros being if you aren't switching your auditing firm, but you're changing the entire auditing team, meaning the partner, auditing partner, the manager, all the way down the line. Essentially, it is like changing your auditor, and with the one exception, like right now, because this is a new audit, we're having to do twice the workload. So every time which I get, I mean, I'm not whining, it's just I've got 3 people on my staff. So it's a lot of ramp up every 3 to 5 years in order to get, because not everybody wants all their financials the same way and they'll need it this way or that way. So that was one of the big reasons that it was pushed forward, and I wasn't on council. I wasn't the finance director. That council approved it. That's how we've moved forward since. But in the meantime, we're going out to select a new auditing firm. But again, it's going to be an independent audit.
I got one more question. I noticed on there also you said the hotel occupancy is up, and you were pleasantly surprised. But we heard from the hoteliers everything's down, so trying to figure that one out.
Maybe they overpaid us. I don't know. I mean.
Hey, just for the record, I think that we've been using the auditor since 2012, because I've looked into this before. It's the Belt Peachak. Anyways, just for clarification, 2012, so it's been a while.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mike, in your report, you were saying that the total indebtedness of the city is $39 million. Is that correct?
In my report, in my report, I showed 39 million is what is the total debt obligation currently funded by your debt service fund. So there is additional debt in enterprise fund, and it's in the budget. I didn't present it tonight. It's not that I'm not trying to hide anything. Again, if you go to our website, there's a House Bill 1378, I think it is. There's a document of every debt issue that we have and when it matures and where it's being paid for. I believe our financial advisor puts it together. But it breaks it out. I think it combines all the general fund tax-backed debt, and it separates it by being funded by water, wastewater, and then so.
Okay, so as I understand it, the 39 million is encumbered or we pay for with our property tax, correct?
That is correct.
And the enterprise fund, the debt of that will be paid for our water sewer bills. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's
Okay,
a piece
thank
of
you.
that.
Kind of like that speaker said first, it still comes out of the people's pocket. That's a big deal. And I'm going to go back to the communication thing. This is what frustrates the people, and especially the people that talk to me at Dairy Queen. That's 13 years. I did this math. I'm not good at math, but I know the old math. I don't know the new math. But the old math tells me that's 13 years, 2012 to 2025. That's 13 years. And just a few minutes ago, it was like, well, that might be 6-7 years.
No, but that's 2 contracts, though. We went through a bidding process. It's not under one contract that we just kept renewing. We can pull that
The same person, basically the same one for 13 years. That's what the people are talking about. It's okay to come clean on that kind of stuff. It's like, we're not trying to hide it. And then, and that's, I think it's disingenuous to say, let's say, oh, that comes out of this fund or that fund when we come to, it's the people's tax money. It's coming out of their pocket. The people, so we have $60 million in debt in this city. We keep going back to this 39, it's 60 million. Everybody knows that because it comes out of their pocket. You can, I could play games with money too. Like, well, it's really over here, but it's over there. And that's what people get tired about. I wish we did the bucket method. We have this huge bucket that says the people's money of the city of Seabrook. And then you got a bunch of little buckets where we go to pay. But obviously we don't do it. Because you know what? That's all that is flim-flamming all over us with skinny britches and pointy lizard shoes, and no one likes it.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mike. 6.1, routine business. Monthly financial, I'm sorry, you already did. 6.2, city manager update and report to city council on various items that require no action, including Seabrook boards and commissions, transportation projects, State Highway 146 recap, and the City of Seabrook CIP projects.
Mayor and council, since your last meeting, your Open Space and Trails Committee has met. You saw the recommendation on your council agenda tonight. They also met virtually with the TxDOT representative. So as you recall, the additional $160,000 award came over to the city of Seabrook. And so TxDOT is guiding open space through the process of trying to figure out in TxDOT right away eligible project that could be applied to. Crothers Drainage Project was also a topic, and staff is guiding them through, along with purchasing, to look at other contractors that might be able to complete that job. Your EDC met last week and had BayHap representative Brian Friedman, as well as going through the projects that they're working on with BayHap and the membership advantages. We also walked through the old Seabrook Livable Center and also the CIP. So the projects that will be coming up for EDC, infrastructure is an eligible project for that board. And so as we're getting ready for fiscal year 26, we are walking through the implementable projects through the study and getting them prepped up for that. Civil Service also met, and we have 2 new sergeants that will be coming forward and getting pinned very soon. Transportation area, we have ongoing communications with the 146 project back to LaPorte. So again, the Red Bluff, we've been in contact with Lone Star. That's the project manager out there. They are expecting those crews to move back in, hopefully within the next 45 days. We will be meeting on site out there, so we are continuing to have conversations with the landscaping crews. We've got trees that need to be relocated. We're going to look at the intersection of Red Bluff and see if we can do some relocation of the landscaping for both of those detention ponds. We're also monitoring on staff. I know we've had a couple of emails on the debris at 146 and Meyer. So we have, as far as city staff is concerned, have traced it back to the contractor that put in the sidewalks on Meyer, and we're in contact with the county. The county has indicated with recent emails that they're working with that contractor to come in and remove that riprap and concrete at that corner. Our CIP projects, we have the Old 146 Interconnect project down Old 146 close to Port Road that has kicked off. We have the Seascape Waterline project that was bid, and you'll be seeing that project as a bid award on your next agenda. And we also, with the award of the generators that we have here at City Hall being the first one, we've gone through a pre-bid meeting, and we'll have a bid opening on March 11th. That concludes my report. If you have any questions.
Yeah, I got a couple. The sails to be painted on 146, any news on that?
Not really. We're continuing our conversations with our TxDOT rep. It's those punch list items. I know a couple of you also had submitted a couple other questions. For instance, we're working with the TxDOT rep on don't think I mentioned this in my last report, but the 10th Street area is, I think the mayor had mentioned it as well, of trying to get some kind of gate so you don't go to the floodgates and you can understand where 10th Street is. The shipyard owners have also communicated that they're having issues with people turning down that. So we've got a list going with TxDOT. The sales are one of those things. What they continue to tell us is these last few items are just killer to get the contractor to come back out and finish them up, but they are working on them.
And I noticed the bollards they're the black ones now, so I saw that under at 146 in Repsdorf. One of the things that people are asking is they don't understand them. Some, I've explained them, but if there was a rope or a chain between them, that would make sense because they're going, why is that missing? I know it's not in the contract, but people are actually asking that question. So, and then the other thing I have is on 146, when you're going northbound on the feeder, there's about 2 or 3 streets after Miramar Shopping Center. There's no signs. There's no signs telling you where that is.
And that's one of the things, yeah. Those signs are in their contract, so they will be,
okay.
Contract will be putting them on.
Right, because some of those people said that delivery people and they can't find their house, and so they've been pretty frustrated, so they asked me to ask, so thanks.
I just have one. I just want to there's been a lot of concern about the Bayside Little League parade happening, and I understand that the coordinator has put in a request for a permit, but then that was at Miramar, which cannot be done because of the construction. And I think they're looking at alternative staging area. Might be the church, First Baptist Church. I don't know if you've received anything on that or have an update, but I want to just, if we could tell the public that we're going to be working through the issues.
I think the organizer is trying her best to figure out something to submit back to the city. The church, I think you and I exchanged emails. The church is who she's talking to right now. That's the last communication I've got.
But the city or the police, we will work through whatever we need to make sure.
Right, it's completely on the organizer. They just got to submit where they're going to go.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I was over at that parking lot in Miramar today. What about the north side of that parking lot? It seems to be repaved and clear. Why can't we just use that?
I thought that was a good option too. I mean, you'd have to get the gate open at Bahama Drive, but I mean, I don't know.
The parade's held early enough where the businesses aren't even open yet.
Right.
Exactly.
So I don't understand.
And that would keep in line with their current, path more, but.
And is there a problem there? Or is it?
Not that I know of. I don't know if they have the right contact to get in touch with for Miramar and that gate getting opened.
I would assume if she was getting permits for the front part, and you're talking about behind the center?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about just to the north of where we normally stage. They repaved it already. It's closer to the,
Oh, you're talking about the front still?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, by Taco Bell.
the Taco Bell.
I don't know, I guess it depends on what it's gonna look like in a month, you know?
It's been all repaved.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like we use that much space when I looked at it every year. Anyway, okay, I'll let them handle it. 6.3, establish future meeting dates and agenda items.
Mayor and council, your next regular council meeting is scheduled for March 4th at 6 PM.
Okay. Item 7.0, executive session. 7.1, section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding legal matters. 7.2, section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding the renewal of the industrial district agreement. And 7.3, personnel matters concerning council members Rob Hefner and Joe McCall. We are adjourned at 8:16. Okay, thank you. We have returned from executive session. It is 9:02. No action was taken. Do I hear a motion?
Move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned at 9:02.